Hey, this is another episode of UFO Garage.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Joe, and this is where we talk about UFOs, aliens, and all things weird. Heck yeah. Welcome back. It's another Thursday. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I'm feeling funky. I'm feeling excited, honestly. This has been an exciting week for UFOs and UAPs and like
it's been interesting, right?
Government stuff and I mean, there's better words for that. But dude,
like things.
Like like things. With the Congress public hearings. Wow.
Yeah, the subcommittee stuff. Did you watch any of it?
I did.
I watched a little bit of it.
Yeah,
you don't want to know what I think, dude.
I can already tell it's a little sour, whatever it is.
I mean, it's not like totally sour.
It's sweet. No, first it's sour, then it's sweet.
It's like a Sour Patch Kid. You got to think on it for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, it was a little sweet.
It was a little sweet. We had fun, didn't we? It's candy.
We had a good time.
We had a good time. Yeah,
playing games.
I mean, that's kind of what. When the Wilson,
that's the whole problem, right? I can't prove it either.
when the Wilson document got brought up, did you notice that moment where they were like, I don't know
what you're talking about.
I would never have. Are you talking tennis balls? I know what.
Admiral Wilson.
Wilson who now? You know, Darsh.
Wait, he was an admiral? Never heard of him.
Oh, he was a really important person? Nope. Sorry.
Yeah, you know Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, no, that Edgar. Oh, I thought you were talking about the bakery downtown.
But like the whole time in their head, they were like, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about. That was with a different department, so I'm going to tell you no, because it's not my department.
Yeah.
No, we didn't even see it.
Honestly, man, like, hey, that's what they should have done. Like, hey, dude. Hey, bro.
Okay. I was nervous, like, for them. Like, my stomach started to hurt.
Yeah.
Like, when he kept trying to show the video, and the guy that was, like, pausing the video kept missing the UFO. And he was like, well, and they were like, is this the best you got? And he was like, well, I mean, yeah, but wait till you see it. Hold on. Wait till you see it. And then, like, they just rambled for a little bit. He was like, oh, did you see it? And they were like, no, we didn't see it.
What made me feel better about I'm pretty good at computers, but like just the live, like on and on switching and playing of like internet issues. Like, dude, I totally get where the frustration is. Like I was watching yesterday's episode, I guess. Right. I mean, it's pretty much an episode, but they were showing a video. It was like a 5-minute silence, and all you could hear, like the audio had just broken for everyone. So it was just like one dude with a button, and he just kept.
He was like, sorry, I usually do this on a high-powered CIA quantum computer, and I wasn't ready for the courtroom laptop. He was like, can't do it.
I felt bad for him for some of the technical issues, but
he was like, you're making me look dumb in front of my friends.
Not in front of my friends, Mom.
Stop it. He was like, I'm trying.
And I mean, dude, the pressure's on. It's not like you're giving a presentation in front of your I don't know, college classroom. It's like the world. Like, this is the most interesting topic in the world.
I think it's just like, it was just weird, right? Because it's like, okay, guys, this is the first time you're going to talk to the public in 50 years about this subject.
No pressure.
And they had like this crazy video, and then they were like, "Oh, I don't know." And then they were like, "We want this entire thing to be about transparency." And then they're like, "All right, the session's over. We'll continue the session off air." And then they like kept talking about the cool shit.
Yeah,
like, but that's what I wanted to hear. It was the cool shit. All they did was say like, "Remember earlier when we told you we were seeing something? We're totally seeing something.
Totally, but we'll be back after these messages." And then
that's what the whole thing was. It was like almost 2 hours of there's totally something.
It's so hard to do everything perfect, especially when you're like in a role of authority. Like, everything's under a microscope. You can't do everything perfect.
Yeah,
But I
I
think
know.
I think overall, like the representation. I mean, like the judges have a hard job there because like everybody's watching their facial expression, like waiting, like oh did his eyebrows raise? Or
Do
every
you think sometimes it's hard because like sometimes they're like, I don't know, they won't tell me, and they have to like
yeah.
come up with some excuse like, well, there's the air, but it belongs to us, so you know.
Dude, that's one of the parts that really got me, man, is like some of the reasons why they haven't come out and given some of this information and the the people representing us, the people that they're like, well, why haven't you said anything? And everybody in the military or whatever agency, they're like, well, we can't tell you because the way that we found out, or like the way that we saw it through whatever sensor, if anybody found out that we're using Windows 98, we'll get hacked. So like, it's a
I
rock and a
know,
hard place, man.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like it's national security. That's the
Not
end
not
of it, you know.
National Chicago. Well, speaking of the
National
most
security.
national security and the most interesting topic in the world. We have a guest tonight. His name is Erik Schlimmer. I'm stoked, dude, to talk to somebody that has that is in a field, a respectable field, dealing with experiencers.
Heck yeah.
And so I'm excited, man. Let's welcome on the guest, Erik.
How you
Good
doing,
evening,
man?
gentlemen. Nice
What's
suit
up?
jackets.
Thank you.
Well,
We saw that you were coming in hot, so Ben and I were like, hey, I own one of these that I got
no.
for Halloween 4 years ago, and then a pair of khakis that my mom bought for me when somebody died like 10
No,
years ago.
what happened is Erik messaged us in the private chat and it says, "Great to see you two got dressed up for the occasion." I'm sitting here like a
He's got a tank top.
Well, you notice I didn't say nice suits. I just said nice suit jackets because
yeah.
missing some components.
Yeah, that's all we got. I don't even know if I could fit in those khakis anymore. I don't even know why I still have them, to be honest with you. Never worn them.
Either way, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Heck
Dude.
yeah, man. I'm excited to kind of get into this and kind of see how you got into this. And like, it's always random usually when people kind of end up into this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
It's like, huh,
Yeah.
who would have thought? But then, like once you get into it and you start actually thinking about it, you start to gain a whole new perspective on the whole topic. And it's pretty interesting. So how about you, man? How did you kind of fall into this? Is this something you've always been into, or is it kind of just, plopped in your lap?
No, my history with this field doesn't really go back far. I really started looking into it about maybe 18 months ago. When I was in college, I actually met Stanton Friedman because he came to my college and spoke. And I was kind of into UAPs back then. Of course, everybody was calling them UFOs. And it's pre-internet. This was like in 2000 and maybe 1999. And there was a local paper where you'd find out where the concerts were and stuff like that. And it said Stanton Friedman's coming to town. And I had heard of him. I actually knew who he was. And I went and saw him speak at the ballroom. This is where I was getting my my bachelor's degree in upstate New York. Saw him speak and totally cool. I like Stanton Friedman because he looked like a mad scientist. He
Yeah.
had like this glare in his eyes. His hair was always kind of messy, and his suit cost like $19. And
Sharp.
totally
Sharp,
cool,
though.
dude. What's that?
Sharp.
Oh yeah, very sharp, very sharp. And I met him afterwards and just came up to him, and that's what I do if a speaker's really good. I'll just come up, shake their hand, say, "Hey, thanks for a great evening." And I said, "Oh, are you a student here?" And just really approachable, mellow dude. For a guy who goes around speaking and he's a nuclear physicist, surprisingly just mellow, normal guy. And then that was it, and nothing happened after that. I didn't read any books and wasn't an interest of mine. I had other interests at the time. But then June, I think it was June 2020 or June 2019, Bob Lazar appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I occasionally tune into Joe Rogan. I had never heard of Bob Lazar, and he was there with Jeremy Corbell. And, anybody who's seen the Lazar interview, you're just like, all right, there's one of two things going on. This is totally made up. Or if this is true, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And I watched it twice in a row, and everybody has their own opinion. I believe Bob Lazar. I think his story is totally legit. After that, I learned about the Nimitz encounter with David Fravor. And Fravor, you must believe, super high caliber guy, has no
Right.
reason to make it up. Waited until he was retired to talk about it. And as they say, the rest is history. Since then, I've been devouring journal articles, layperson articles, anything I could find on Twitter, a bunch of books, watching podcasts, appearing on podcasts. I'm totally immersed and could not be happier.
That's awesome,
dude. Yes,
Heck
we
yeah.
actually got a guy in the chat right now, Mr. Jim Goodall, who's like really good friends with Bob Lazar. He's like, yeah, I believe him.
Yeah, what a fascinating story. And I couldn't really think of a reason why he would make it up. From a
Right.
therapist perspective, you would probably make it up if you had some kind of personality disorder like histrionics, where you just need a lot of attention, or narcissism, where I need to always be better than everybody else, so I'll just tell the best story in the universe that nobody will believe. And the other reason would be financial motivation, but I'm under the impression he hasn't made a lot of money. So it seems like pretty innocent reasons to share this story. So I'm on board with Lazar. Could be proven false, but for right now, I think it's true.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. All in all, it's a. I mean, let's be honest. It's just like a really cool story, and it is one of those like stories that definitely will hook you. You're like, wait a second, what?
So
Yes,
what I'm so interested, dude, is your perspective, Eric. Being a licensed therapist, I mean, you're probably pretty caught up on psychology and like knowing the ways of the mind. You hit on a few things with like the difference between a narcissist and you said some other term that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, it's a rare word, histrionics. It has nothing to do with history. It's just flamboyant behavior. It's the loud person in the restaurant. It's the one who's always saying, woe is me. Anything for attention, and they're always blowing things out of proportion. Histrionics.
Oh, damn. I'm like self-diagnosing right now. I'm like,
I know.
Well, check.
I remember that one time.
Yeah.
I think a medium, please.
I don't. Oh yeah, Vegas. Yeah. Yeah. So, dude, I'm just so I'm so excited to just learn more about that. I've always been very interested in psychology and just like what makes us tick, and everybody's a little different, and we're kind of all categorized into different types of thinking and acting and interacting with our reality. And because I'm so focused and what Joe and I do is interview people that have had experiences, it does have a lot to do with the mind. So I'm very interested in your thoughts on how the phenomenon and experiencers, I'm just putting a puzzle piece together. What's the kind of the first puzzle piece that you have put together between the link between experiencers and the phenomenon?
Yeah. And it is, like you said, it's extremely complex and it's very challenging for a therapist. So I currently work with 2 experiencers, which is pretty good. I have a caseload typically of about 40 or 45 clients. And they found me on Twitter, which was the whole point of me creating my UAP therapist persona a few months ago. So I'll give you an example about how this is very difficult for a therapist to sort through. Okay. So I'll give you a real life example of a former client. Okay. And this client was very superstitious and he had what we call magical thinking. So magical thinking, and we have another term similar, is fortune telling, where events will happen. And to me and you, it's just a benign event. It doesn't really mean anything. It could be random chance. It could be nothing special at all. Like maybe 2 white cars are driving down the highway side by side. but some people will think this has some kind of special meaning, which leads to other events which have additional meaning. So in this case, a client came to my office and I can tell exactly the client's mood when I see him in the waiting room. You could just tell by the facial expression and their body language. And he seemed kind of shaken. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And as he walked to the office, as you come up to an intersection, there's the little walk dude. He says, "Oh, go ahead and walk, and you probably won't get run over." He got 4 of those in a row. Okay, so he walked up, and it was just time to cross. To me and you, it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, it probably doesn't happen very often, but it's totally possible. Okay, but that he thought had some kind of special meaning for him specifically, which led him to pass certain people on the sidewalk down the road that he would have missed if he had one of the signs telling him to stop. So you can see that one event leads to another event, and now meeting these people has meaning, and this, that. And maybe if he didn't interact with the people, he would order dinner that night and it would be burned because he didn't interact with them as he should.
Is that an example, or is that something very specific that he actually brought up? Like
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, so that actually happened, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's about almost like predicting future events, and then you have this magical thinking. So that's not based in reality. Okay, we have no reason to believe that it just wasn't a random event. The people he met didn't know him; they wanted nothing to do with him, and sometimes dinners get burned. That's it, right? It has no meaning.
Right.
But working with somebody with a UAP experience, they'll tell me about the experience. I have no reason not to believe them, right? So it would be in poor taste for a therapist to be very suspicious, and then you have to prove to me it happened, right? Which,
Yeah.
by the way, most therapists will do because they don't know anything about UAPs, right?
Right.
So if somebody has an interaction with a UAP and then they maybe have an intense dream about apocalyptic Earth and nuclear war, and then they wake up with this strong feeling they know something is in their bedroom,
Oh,
I don't have the luxury of just dismissing it because the field of UAPs is so weird, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
seeing a UAP could lead to an apocalyptic vision, which could lead to thinking that somebody's in your home, like some kind of being or some kind of force. So it's very difficult for me to sort out coincidences from from future events stemming from a UAP experience. And I hope I explained that well. It's
I
just
think
there are so
yeah.
many additional facets to UAPs. If somebody says, and this has been reported, well, I saw a UAP, and then in my bedroom, I saw a dark shadow that walked through the wall, right? I've heard stories like that.
Right.
I don't know if they're imagining that. I don't know if it happened. So it's very difficult for me in this position to sort out imagination from reality.
yeah. That's got to be a tough thing because,
Mhm.
you kind of have to take yourself out of that as a professional.
Mhm.
Like, hey, so instead of saying, hey, prove it to me, like you said earlier, you can't just say, hey, prove it to me. How do you approach that and dig deeper and get to those deeper details? Are there like, I guess the question is like, are you coming at it from a place of understanding because you're curious yourself, or like
Mhm.
you're almost like, hey, I think there's a reason why you're experiencing the things that you're experiencing in the way that you're experiencing because of something that's in a book, and I know exactly how to diagnose you, or is it something that we just don't know about yet?
Right. So there's an approach that I can use, and I'm simply looking for evidence. It's kind of like being in court, right? So if somebody goes to court and they say, "Hey, I think this guy's following me," the judge doesn't say, "Oh, okay," and write a temporary restraining order. He says, "Well, why do you think you need to give me some evidence?"
Yeah.
And so the treatment model we use looking for evidence is cognitive behavioral therapy. So if somebody says something to me that they think or they believe, basically I'm going to say it's kind of like a courtroom, but much gentler. And say, you got to give me some evidence. And so cognitive behavioral therapy is facts, evidence, reasoning, logic, intellect. We take out all the feeling, I believe. Nope. We're going to put that over there. I think, I feel. Let's put those by the side. And we just need facts, evidence, reasoning, logic, and intellect. Okay. So I may pick up on something that the client thinks is connected to an event or believes, maybe almost in a superstitious way, of why things happen. And to a trained therapist working with so many people via cognitive behavioral therapy, you can do a pretty good job of sorting the wheat from the chaff, right? The beliefs from the facts. But again, this UAP stuff, I mean, the more I study it, probably like you guys, the more confused I get. The less I knew. It's almost like the more I knew.
100%. Yep.
It's ridiculous because, at first I was thinking, all right, UAPs are from another planet far, far away. All right, that's totally believable. But then we have this theory, no, they're humans from the future, which is the theory I'm going with. And I'm like, all right, that's really weird, but you still got me on board with this. And now people are saying, oh, yeah, it's probably from another dimension. And I'm just like, where does this end? It's
I
getting
know.
really wacky.
Yeah. And it's weird because like I feel like a lot of people get hung up, even I get hung up on that. Like was it I think John Mack had said, when he was being interviewed about, the sessions and stuff that he's done with experiencers, and he's like, look, I don't know if it's happening, but I believe that what they're experiencing is 100% real. And like, he was just like kind of stuck. He's like, dude, I can't fucking prove it. It's just like, but like, I believe that they believe whatever's happening to them is happening to them. And what do you do with something that only wants to interact when it feels like interacting? It's like a really tough thing to have to like deal with. And it seems like, well, yeah, that's convenient, right? But at the same time, like, people have been experiencing this for a long time. Like, how many people does it have to happen to? Like, how many of like the reports do you have to get before, like, there's just too many people for it to be crazy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thankfully, and it makes my job a lot easier. The experiences that I work with, the theme I get, or they'll say it, literally they'll say it, is, I can't believe I finally get to tell somebody. That's what they want, is validation, right? And a good therapist just goes, and then what? Okay. And then wait, you kind of lost me in the story. Then could you repeat that? Okay. And we're kind of going along, right? Because what they've done is they've probably confided in friends or family. Okay. And they're going to get probably two outcomes. One is they think they're crazy, right? That never happened. And they'll come up with these pretty lame theories about what actually happened. Okay. So they feel dismissed, which is it really burns them, because maybe they've took like a year to build up the courage and the bravery to be like, that's it, I'm going to tell somebody, and they get shot down. Okay.
Yeah.
If they are believed, and I see this with all my clients not related to UAP stuff, is family members and friends mean well, and they also say dumb things. Right. So you may say, my girlfriend broke up with me and I'm heartbroken. And what do they say? You'll find somebody else. Right. Or maybe they say that 6 months after the breakup, and the friend or family member will say, you can't dwell on it. And by the way, the proper response to that is, says who? Because people are very uncomfortable around misery, especially other people's misery, right?
Yeah.
I like when you're happy. Don't cry. You need to move on, right? So even if somebody is believed for their UAP experience, people mean well, but it often comes across as dismissive.
Right.
I've got a question, man, because this would help me a lot. I mean, I think we'll both, Joanne and I, because we've talked to hundreds of people that are like sometimes it's we're the only people they've ever told, and it's like live on
Yeah.
our show. It's very
Yeah.
like I just applaud the bravery of a lot of our guests.
Yeah.
So like, what's the proper way? I mean, I feel like we do a pretty good job of bringing in humor and stuff, but like, what's a good tactic on instead of saying, hey, well, there's more fish in the sea, or the examples you were kind of explaining. In that case, what would be a good thing to say for those listening, like family members and friends, if you're trying to reach out to somebody, or you're listening to your own family member, like what would you say if somebody just came up to you and said, hey, this happened to me?
Right. Well, to begin with, if somebody wants your advice, the sentence will begin with, I would like your advice. If they don't say that, they are not looking for advice. They're not looking for solutions. And people are naturally fixers, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was a whistleblower. I can't believe I got fired from my job. Oh, there's a job fair coming up. They know a job fair is coming up, right? They're
Right.
not looking for advice. They're not looking for solutions. And you guys do a fine job, right? And it's just all they want is somebody to listen. It's kind of like, if you have a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and they have a really bad day at work, and they come home and they're just, oh my God, I can't stand working with these people. And then I end up doing their work for them. And
Lacey said, what now?
yeah.
Oh, she did. Okay. Yeah.
And so the person they're confiding in will say, well, there are other jobs. And the person complaining sometimes will just say, I just want to bitch. Can you shut up? I just want to complain. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if somebody's going to talk about an odd experience they have, maybe around UAPs, they want to tell somebody. They're not looking for advice. They're not looking for solutions. They're not looking for you to interrupt. You know what? If you don't know what to say, it's totally fine to say, I haven't been there myself, but it sounds rough. Done. That's all they want, is some kind of validation. I can't believe I got fired from my job. Yeah, I know you liked it. I know you loved it over there. Dude, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's all they want. It's actually pretty simple, as long as you're not giving advice and trying to fix their problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love
that's
that.
me. That irritates me. I hate when people do that.
Yeah. Like, all you want to do is just like,
You're like, thanks.
Yeah, it's super.
Thanks. I
super
kind of
simple
already knew
stuff.
that.
Yeah. And this is the thing, when people offer solutions or advice, they've already thought of that, right? They've already thought about getting another job. They've already thought about, creating an online dating profile to find another girlfriend. They've already thought about that. I mean, specific to UAP stuff, these people, they feel, for very good reason, they cannot talk to anyone. They can't talk to anyone, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of experiencers have lost close relationships, whether it's familiar or just friends. I know people who have kind of reached out to me through Twitter, not as a client, but they just wanted to tell me what happened. I get these random messages from people, and they say, hey, I don't need you as a therapist, but can I tell you what happened? I was like, yeah, man, that's fine. Just tell me what's up, right? Because again, they have nobody to talk to. I've also received notes from people, they have anonymous Twitter accounts because they don't want their employer to find out. People
Yeah.
can actually become quite vicious against UAP experiencers.
They definitely can. Have you have you found yourself like, taking on some of these clients? What is your feedback on it? Is it what you is it what you might have expected it to be going in, or did it kind of take you out in left field? Like, holy crap, I got to really crack some books with this. Like, there's just so much to it now that it's almost like kind of very time consuming, that the amount of stuff that you're having to like get into now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier than I thought, because what I thought they would be looking for are answers. Well, if you're looking for answers about UAPs, you're asking the wrong guy. Like, I don't. Who the hell knows what's
I love
going
that
on?
answer.
Yeah,
Where they're
that's a
from,
great answer.
intentions, etc. Again, they just want to talk to somebody, and they appreciate so much if they get to the end of a story and they look kind of downtrodden because they were shaken by the experience. Just a simple, yeah, that sounds tough. Yeah, that sounds tough. And it also sounds like you've been kind of just doing this on your own. And they're like, oh, finally, somebody gets it.
Yeah.
Yes, dude, this is so helpful. I mean, like some of the things you're saying, like because I consider myself somewhat of an experience, or I don't believe that I've been abducted, but like I always try to approach anybody that shares a story with us, either on the show or in person, with like, tell me more. Like that's like with empathy and curiosity. That's just because it's natural. Like I'm honestly empathetic and curious. But for those that aren't, like maybe you have a family member that always give you shit growing up. Maybe it's an older brother or sister. Like I can't imagine how awkward that would be. Like if you're just over for dinner one night and that's the night that you chose, and it's like, hey, I have to tell. It has to be so. I don't know, anxiety driven, and I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is like it's good to know what to expect that person is going to say negatively versus positively, and maybe while you're having that conversation, you could say, hey, instead of like making fun of me, maybe you could ask me something like this, or just say like, hey, that you've had a rough time. That makes sense. That I haven't been where you are, like you're saying. So I think that's super helpful. As far as
Really,
starting that conversation.
Yeah, really simple stuff like, oh, this sounds like it's really been bothering you.
Yeah.
And I say it to clients often. I go, that sounds like a lot to carry around. It's just very simple. They're just looking for validation. It's interesting. So I've never seen anything weird. Never seen a UAP, nothing like that, which has an advantage and a disadvantage as a therapist. But when I got into this field, I had to have what I thought was going to be an extremely awkward conversation with my employer. So I work at a private practice, and my boss, Kate, owns the practice. And right before I created my Twitter account, UAP Therapist, I said, people are going to eventually find out where I work. And what if she gets these calls like, do you know your therapist is a weirdo? Like he's talking about like future humans and other dimensions. And I think he sounds like a terrible therapist. So I actually sat down with her and I said, Kate, I have to tell you about my research interests and I want to incorporate it into therapy. And she's like, okay. And thank God
That's awesome.
that the conversation went totally awesome. So for example, I told her I was going to be on your guys' podcast. And so they ran out and bought me this light and this webcam and this microphone. And they're
Dude,
just
that
like,
is so awesome.
yeah.
Oh my God.
And I would send them articles and they read them and they're like, dude, this is really serious stuff. And I was like, yeah, no kidding.
It is.
Yeah.
And, my colleagues one by one are finding out. But I have to, it's the conversation again. I'm not even an experiencer. If I bring it up with my friends or colleagues, at the very beginning, there's this awkwardness because they're uneducated. So when I say UAP, they don't even know what that means. If I say the Nimitz, never heard of it. What is that?
Yeah.
Bob Lazar, never heard of them. They really know nothing. All they know is the UFO X-Files little green men shtick,
Right.
which is the most obnoxious thing in the world. Not the uneducated people, but this like awkward laughter. And it's so dumb. And so you have uneducated people, they simply have no clue what the evidence is. And then I'll send them, the YouTube link to the congressional briefing the other day. And they're like, dude, this is like really serious. And I'm like, yeah. And then they quickly get on board. So now
Yeah,
I have
I
colleagues
know.
that come in and they're like, dude, you got any updates? And I was like, nah, it's pretty quiet out there. They're like, ah,
I think
it's
that is
awesome.
one of the
People get
most
hooked.
one of the most fun moments for me, is like that realization on somebody who like just has just like kind of, not been interested in the topic at all, right? It's just, it's fiction, it's science fiction, it's just fun. And then like, it is such a delicate conversation in the beginning. And then you hit them with the documents and they're like, "What the hell?
Yeah.
Really?" And you're
Yeah.
like,
They're like,
"Yeah."
how did I not know this?
Yeah. And
It's
all the
totally
other
cool.
crazy stuff that I was saying prior to all the stuff I'm showing you right now, like it probably happened too, like it's just crazy. It's a crazy time that we live in, man.
It is.
Through doing this, Ben and I, like I said, we've talked to a lot of people doing this whole thing, and like there are a lot of similarities in a lot of these cases. And then there's always like that one thing about like everybody's interaction that like completely throws me for a loop, right? And it's like the fascinating part to me is like, okay, they're having all these similarities, and then boom, the being turns into a burrito and rolls on his floor. And like that's a real story.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay. So if we're going with the idea that this guy's been visited, right? We're gonna go with the idea that like a supreme, or not even supreme, like
Burrito Supreme.
we'll just call it like
Chicken
another
Supreme.
extremely intelligent being turned into a burrito and rolled on his floor and then disappeared. Like you have to go with that, It's such a conflicting thing in your mind sometimes to like be like, okay, I was on board, but that burrito shit, I don't know.
Honestly,
Like,
that was
how do
so
you-
far left field that it made me be like, it made me think of how a being would achieve that.
Yeah,
And the reasons why.
But I guess from kind of like a therapeutic standpoint, like, you hear these stories and then all of a sudden there's like that thing and you're like, well, like how do you approach that in your mind,
Yeah. Well, thank God I haven't had a client say that, because I mean, that's like, I really wouldn't know what to say. The weirdest thing I've heard, I actually didn't watch the interview with him. I'm just doing too many other things, but it was a young airman who worked at some kind of nuclear facility. And he said that these shadow beings would walk into the facility through walls. And
Yep.
I didn't watch the interview, so I don't know much about it. So that's the thing we're hearing. Like, there are some I don't know if I believe them. Right now, I'm reading the book The Day After Roswell, which was written by a retired Army colonel who said that he was involved deeply in the case in the 1960s after the fact that it crashed. And he's saying stuff that I have no reason to believe. I have no reason to believe. So there being a secret base on the moon. And again, I'm just
Just
I'm
being
hearing right
honest.
now is one person's testimony. If you can give me evidence, I am totally on board with that. Right now, it's just one man saying that, or we've been in contact. The government is like close associates with these beings already, and they have a relationship. Again, it's just one person saying it. If somebody can give me evidence, then I have no problem believing that. So the more far out things, I mean, I'm not in a position, and I don't think it's a good idea to believe everything, right? If one person says it, that's fine. If it's a therapeutic relationship, I'm thinking less about the burrito and more about how they feel about that event that may have happened, right? That's my role. It's
Right.
not to know, it's not to decide if it's true or not in most cases. It's more about what suffering came from that event that they say happened, right?
Mhm.
I'm
But
glad
when
you.
I take off this suit and I'm at home just kind of hanging out, I do hear some pretty bizarre stuff. And unless there's evidence, I just can't get on board with it.
I'm glad you said that, because the next question I was going to ask, like, does it matter if you believe them or not?
Not really. Not really. If they're gonna say something pretty far out, again, I'll challenge them. I'll say, why would you feel that happened, or what evidence do you have? And they may just say, "Dude, I don't have any. I don't have any. I don't believe it myself. It's
I
stupid. It's ridiculous." And I'm like, I get it. And again, I'm not there to interrogate them. It's just, where are they at now, and how can I help them, whether the event happened or not.
I think it's I think it's healthy for anybody, pouring their heart out, even though I know it's vulnerable, even though whatever you're saying is could sound insanely crazy,
Yeah.
but I think it's healthy to have a calm reaction when somebody challenges you. So I'm glad that you do that, and you're not just like So I'm glad that you like challenge that, because and if somebody has these experiences that we're talking about, that's kind of far out left field, not specifically the burritos story, but I feel like it's healthy to at least have the expectation that it's going to be challenged, and you have to be okay with that challenge. And what's your answer going to be? Is it going to be like, no, I'm not lying? No, that solves nothing. I feel like the better way to approach that is, I understand that this has there's no reference for you to compare it to reality, but from my reality, it does have some relativeness and importance. But for you, you have nothing to compare it to. So I feel like that's good that you challenge that. Anyway, that was a long
Right.
roundabout way.
No. You make an extremely good point, and my clients who like to work hard, when I challenge them at first, they don't like me very much, because I'm kind of shattering their worldview, these beliefs that they've been carrying around for years, perhaps decades. But once we work through that challenge, they'll say, I, I'm really glad you challenged me on that, because I wouldn't have gotten out of that rut. When you have a therapist who doesn't challenge clients, you're paying for a friend. Okay. You should have friends for free. You pay a therapist, not a friend. One of my favorite lines to ask clients, where, it's always somebody else's fault. Oh, people are misunderstanding me. My favorite sentence to start with, and they find it mildly obnoxious because I say it a lot, is, could it be? And I offer an alternative, like, could it be you? Could it be you?
Are these scenarios and differences,
Yeah.
like, could they be something that you were creating yourself instead of
Right. And it's not even I'm looking for, so I don't, all right, so if somebody burns through friendships, right? And they're like, "Oh, people are horrible and they don't commit, and I don't like humans, and they're everybody's terrible, actually, if we get down to it." And I don't word it as, maybe you're a jerk, or they think you're a jerk. What do you think of that, right? Because that's a little too aggressive, because they've been thinking this way for years. So I start the sentence with, "Hey, look, I'm not even looking for a confirmation or a yes. Could it be? Is there any possibility in the universe it could be you?" And I'm not saying it is. Could it be? And that opens them up to this other reality. Wow, it could be me. So clients who like to work hard like to be challenged.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful,
cool,
man. Love
That's
that.
cool.
Love that. Woo, dude! I'm like working out puzzles in my head too. Just thinking about the delicate nature. Joe, you were talking about that earlier. How delicate it is when somebody kind of shares their experience with you.
Yeah, definitely. In this field, you do see things like schizophrenia, or like narcissistic tendencies with some people. Have you ran into a lot of that, or when you do run into it, do you switch from like, okay, this guy was totally going to talk about aliens, but he's schizophrenic, I'm picking up on the signs, let's switch to working on this? It's kind of like a mid switch type thing, where they think they're still talking about aliens, but now you're in like, okay, let's see how we can help this dude, because I think he's got schizophrenia. Have you ran into any of that types of stuff?
Right. Yeah, good question. So before I started working at this practice in Colorado, I lived in upstate New York and I worked at a secure psychiatric facility. And you basically had to be too unstable to go to jail. Okay. And that's pretty bad because we have some really unstable people in jail. So there are a lot of dissociative identity disorder, which is just having multiple personalities, and schizophrenia. Those are two really serious, somewhat rare mental illnesses. And those folks, you set the bar pretty low. Okay. So, for example, everyone in that facility, you could not do talk therapy with. You can't sit down for a half hour because their mind is just it's scattered. And schizophrenia, the best way to describe it, it's all consuming. Relationships, memory loss, lack of sleep, auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, alternate realities. So, for example, you may, if somebody in the community here has schizophrenia, all I want them to do is take a shower, get dressed, and get a ride over here. That's it. So it creates some kind of structure. And then what they can do is they can have that as evidence, have it as data. I can actually leave my home, go talk to somebody, maybe 20 minutes, half hour, not the full hour session, make it back home, and I'm okay. Right. So we'll just take these baby steps. A great example of a very interesting man I worked with schizophrenia years ago. He, in a 100% literal sense, not figurative, he thought he was RoboCop for real.
Wow.
And that's why he ate batteries, because it would give him power.
Whoa.
Dude.
It was really far out.
That's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah. And also a deep, odd fascination relationship with space. So if you were going to go into the room and work with him, you can't bring in like a folder with stars on it. You can't wear a NASA hat because he thought you were from that universe and you were coming back and communicating. So that's how bad that illness can be. Now, I'm glad you brought up schizophrenia, because one of the lamest explanations I've ever heard for people who claim to see UAPs are people dismissing them, and they say, well, they have schizophrenia. These are the people who went on Wikipedia, typed in schizophrenia, and read the first paragraph, and the first paragraph maybe mentioned visual hallucinations. Okay.
Mhm.
These people have no idea what they're talking about because, again, it's all consuming. So if you have schizophrenia and you're having visual hallucinations, so, some real basic questions would be, why are they only seeing UAPs? Why not chocolate covered donuts?
That was going to be my
Why
next
not
question.
dragons? Why not
Yes.
textbooks?
Yep.
Why don't they see 3 sons instead of 2? Why don't they think they're RoboCop? How do they have a job? How do they have a girlfriend? How do they own their own business, right? So what they're taking is one specific symptom of a very serious mental illness and saying, this is the only symptom they have, and they're wrong, okay? And if anybody was going to say, well, Eric, I don't agree with that, I would use the classic comeback, well, then you're wrong. So that grabbing these little components of mental illnesses to explain away people seeing UAPs, it doesn't hold any water.
See, man, I've always felt the exact same way, like,
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor. I have 0 training, but like, I always felt like schizophrenia seems a lot more involved than just like seeing some stuff, like we can't just keep classifying all these people who see some things,
Right.
as, and, you look at Dr. Jacques Vallée, and then he talks about the phenomena as a whole, like actually like appearing or interacting with you based on your own interpretations and things like that. So like, maybe this all is like one big phenomena being represented in like multiple different ways to different people, and they're all talking about the same thing. It's just different for everybody,
Yeah. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It can't easily be explained away. Again, if somebody's going to go around saying, well, I saw UAP, they're going to have so many other symptoms that's going to become evident that they're really suffering.
Yeah,
That is-
totally.
That's the best evidence or answer to that question. I've been wondering that for a while. I wanted to talk to a professional that has dealt with that, because it always seemed to me like, okay, if somebody truly had schizophrenia or suffered from delusions or bipolar, I mean, I don't know if bipolarism or I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but if that includes auditory or visual hallucinations. But, you know, I think everybody's on some sort of spectrum. That's just my personal belief. I don't know, but just a little bit, you know, every now and then. But like, I can't bring myself to believe that everybody that has these stories, and you talk to them, and then there's regular people holding down regular jobs, they've never talked about this stuff ever, and then they say, you know what, I do have a story, and then they tell you the most amazing story you've ever heard. You know, this happened recently to me with somebody I really, really respect. Told me this story out of nowhere. I can't believe that person has schizophrenia that one time for 6 hours, and then that was it, and never experienced anything like that ever again.
Yep.
I think we could rule that one out.
Absolutely.
And I think,
we got a question in the chat right here. It says, Eric, what do you suggest for missing time after a UAP?
That's
listening to you, it sounds like you wouldn't suggest anything, right? You know,
right.
it's more of just kind of trying to understand it, you know, but that does happen.
It is super interesting. That is one of the most interesting parts. I love reading about it. Okay, so I was just talking about this with a client today. So you can experience a traumatic event so horrible, your brain blocks that memory out, right? It's just too horrible to remember, right? Or if you remember it, it's kind of fuzzy. Like the memory will kind of have like a matte finish, and it's to tone everything down. Okay, so you may have kind of a dreamy memory of it, or you can't remember anything. So if you come across somebody, you know, somebody's working as a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, and you're doing an intake and trying to get to know the client or patient better, and you're talking about their childhood, and you know what? They're like, you know what? I don't remember anything, nothing between the ages of 4 and 8. You're like, ooh, I think something really bad happened. Amazing example of the memory being changed and maybe some missing time or things are a little bit fuzzy. There's an excellent video of New York City firefighter who was involved in 9/11, and he's kind of the guy who was closest to the collapse and didn't die. And it's because he had all his gear on. Part of it was a respirator. And right before the towers collapsed, the kind of last thing he remembers are people jumping out of the towers. An absolute horrible thing to see. He went to a therapist. He has post-traumatic stress disorder. Oh man, I got to talk about this. To this day, when he recalls the memory and he looks on the sidewalk, he can only see dead cows. Wow. He cannot see humans because it's too traumatic of a memory. Very, very interesting interview with this guy. Now, so that can happen, right? Something terrible happens and you have some missing time, but that's not really what I see with the UAP stuff. So I'm of the theory, I could be wrong, who knows, that UAP occupants are humans from the future. That's what I think. I think they can travel through time and they can travel through other dimensions. And I think that explains maybe the great speeds that they travel at. So if you have a distance of maybe 200 miles and through the manipulation of time or dimensions, you can reduce it to a couple feet wide, then you could just quick hop over. There's also reports of things just disappearing. They just whoop and they're gone and they reappear over there. The time thing, I think, lends credence to that theory. There's something going on with time. So I've heard a couple very interesting cases. One is the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and other stories like this where people are driving cars They don't really remember. There was something going on the drive home. And let's say the drive usually takes 20 minutes. They get home 4 hours later.
Oh.
But they swear they were gone for 20 minutes. They thought the drive went fine. Are the clocks fast? No.
Right.
It took like 3 or 4 hours. I read an account of a pilot. He swears he was around a UAP for 2 minutes. He burned a half hour of fuel. Okay. But the most interesting case is the Rendlesham Forest case from 1980 in the UK involving some US airmen. There's a really, really good book I recommend everybody read about the Rendlesham Forest by Nick Pope. And Nick Pope, really nice guy. I've talked to him, super cool guy. He during the 90s, he was kind of like the Lou Elizondo of the United Kingdom, like super cool guy, very, very savvy and knows a lot about UAPs because he investigates so many cases. And the Rendlesham Forest one involved 2 airmen where they got very close to a UAP. One actually touched it, which is a whole other story. So weird. And they swear they were gone minute, 2 minutes. And as one of them approached the craft, it was almost like walking through mud or water or sand. There was just this weird, almost force field that he broke through. So anyway, the thing takes off and they walk back out of the forest, and there's a bunch of airmen there with alarmed expressions. And the 2 guys who are near the UAP are like, what are you guys doing here? Oh, wow, a bunch of people. And they're like, dude, this is a search party.
Yeah.
And they're like, search party? Who are you looking for? You. And they're like, dude, we've been gone a minute. And said, you guys have been missing for 45 minutes. And the 2 men's watches were 45 minutes off from everybody else's.
It's so strange.
There's some totally weird. It also may be the case of Travis Walton, the logger who was abducted in Snowflake, Arizona. If I remember the story correctly, I think he was gone for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, 5 days.
He never would have guessed. He thought he was gone for a couple hours. So that time thing is super interesting, and I think it has to do with the manipulation of time and dimensions. I could be wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got, some personal friends, Terry Lovelace. I mean, that guy, he went on a routine motorcycle ride, and riding on a dirt road is something he said he'd never do. And he said, I was cruising on the highway, and then next thing I knew, I'm driving down this dirt road, and I kind of look around, and I look down at my watch, and I've been driving down this dirt road for over 2 hours. I'm 2 hours behind on my route, and I don't know what happens, Our buddy Jocelyn, she went to go take photos out at Bradshaw Ranch. I think it was Bradshaw Ranch. And she was with some friends.
I think it was,
She hopped the fence.
Went across
Yeah, she hopped the fence, and she was gone for, she said, about 15, 20 minutes, just taking pictures. And when she came back over, the sheriff's department was out there. She had friends out there. Everybody was looking for her, and she had been gone for a couple hours, when just to her, she was gone for a couple minutes, just taking some photos. But they believe, they believe that maybe there is some sort of, phenomena going on out at that ranch, kind of like the Skinwalker Ranch or the Skywalker Ranch. Like there's like some high energies. And if you go back to the Rendlesham case, right, some of that binary code, Sedona, Arizona is where that's at. So that is one of the places that have this supposed high energy in them. It's also fascinating, man. That missing time stuff. I mean, my phone is like 11 minutes ahead of everybody, and I don't know why. Like everybody's phone is like matching except for mine. So I'm not claiming anything.
At one point, it was more accurate, right? There was like a period of time, it was a couple months where it was like, okay,
it was 9 minutes, and now it's 11 minutes.
And now it's 11 minutes.
Yeah, it keeps getting faster. I feel like I'm living like half a second faster than everybody.
Dude, you may be aging faster, which is disturbing.
I know.
Who knows?
It sucks, dude.
You're on Joe time.
I know, dude. I watched this really interesting thing, and they were talking about like the lifespans of like humans, and then they went into like flies and stuff like that, and it having to do with their metabolism, and they were talking about reptiles and stuff, and they were talking about just on the food chain, and however like your life length exists, you're able to regulate your own metabolism and stuff. And they were saying that's why when you like go to swat a fly, if you go really, really slow, in their time, it's like watching the grass grow. So you're supposed to go really, really slow. If you're
Yeah.
looking at an elephant, it's a little bit more laid back. Well, the reason the
True.
fly you go so slow is because they're running really, really fast. So the slower you move to them, it's like watching the grass grow, right? But to an elephant, doesn't have a lot of apex predators. Life's pretty slow. They're just kind of hanging out. They live for a long time. Reptiles, they live the longest, it seems like, them, and like fish and birds, and it's because like their metabolism and how they live. So like I'm wondering if that time thing, like if these beings that are taking us live in that like, sped up fly world where, to them, a lifetime to us is like nothing. It's like a weekend. We travel across the universe. It takes 4 million years. It takes, 25 generations of space, birds to make it to another side of the galaxy. And like, that's a really long time. They can do it instantly and it still, take 4 million years. But to them, it was like really quick.
Yeah. Time is weird. Somebody, I think it was an article I read online by maybe a physicist. He's still blown away by time can feel slow or it can feel quick. If you're in a waiting room, it seems like time slows. And then if
Yeah.
you're, eating a really good piece of birthday cake, it just kind of goes so quick. You would think it would just be constant no matter the environment or experience. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe and I were actually talking about this a couple nights ago where like, so back to your understanding or maybe theory on your journey right now is that these ET or aliens, whatever you want to call them, are us from the future who have figured out a technology that can travel the universe from one side of a galaxy to another, maybe from one universe to a different universe. And what I think is that whatever technology that they're using so space and time is involved with that travel. So it's technically not traveling. It's just getting rid of one of the dimensions, and one of that dimensions is time. So so like the diagram that I see in my mind is like, that like really famous diagram where it's like you see a ball in the middle of this grid, and the heavier the ball, the further it drops. So flip that so you're looking at it like bird's eye view. So as you get closer to that gravitational field, so picture instead of a planet, it's a black hole, or maybe this, if we believe that black holes are wormholes to different galaxies or universes, or just anywhere within whatever, maybe they're portals.
Yeah.
So as you're looking at it from this angle, when you get closer to that event horizon, time stops. But that's just from our perspective. But to them, they're going this way. But to us, they stop. Just because our perspective, we're looking at it like this. So they're going like this and we're moving. Okay, well, time stops when you get to the event horizon. Well, maybe not. It's because they're like traveling that way. Does that make sense?
It does. And the whole, when people start talking about dimensions, I'm out. Like, I'm out. I don't, I'm out of the conversation. I'll listen, but I can't contribute anything. The time thing is it's just very
time consuming.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. It's interesting. And when I read an article or even the conversation we're having right now, I quickly reach my intellectual capacity.
I understand completely.
Yeah.
But that is interesting that you were talking about the physicist who was studying how, like, when you're eating a piece of cake, it goes faster, but when you're sitting in a DMV, it sucks and it takes forever.
Yeah.
It almost makes you wonder, like, is there like an internal mechanism, like within the human being, that can regulate the speed of time? And it's something that maybe we haven't like figured out how to use. Like maybe there's parts to the human body that we don't realize work in certain ways yet, and maybe we're like evolving for that to be something, like maybe in the mind, like maybe these things live for 800 years because they know how to control that mechanism, or they can go faster or slower.
Yeah, good point. If we're going with the future human theory, as far as I know, I have not read anything about UAP occupants speaking. I haven't seen an incident of that yet. I've read a couple stories where somebody thought they heard a language that was almost similar to Russian. Of course, it wasn't Russian. And there are many, many reports where humans were they were spoken to telepathically. I'm now kind of getting into the theory that the UAPs are flown via the pilot's mind, which is really far out, but it does lend credence if you're gonna follow Bob Lazar's story and a couple other people's stories who said they've been in UAPs. One of the very fascinating things I love is the simplicity. And that's an understatement. The simplicity. There are no buttons. There are no levers. There are no gauges. There's no wiring. There are no switches. There are no screens. Everything has this radius of curvature. Like the whole thing has been melted. Everything's symmetrical.
It's like a Jello mold, right?
Yes, it's
It's
very odd. And people, like there aren't doorways, there's no art, there's not a chart, there's no paper, there's no wood, there's no trim. And reading this Roswell book recently, I'm kind of open to the theory that not only can they communicate telepathically, but they may be able to fly the UAP at will, and the material is some kind of smart material that maybe its velocity comes about from vibrations. I mean, it's so weird. But again, we said at the very beginning of this conversation, at this point, you put anything on the table, it might be true. Who the hell knows?
Have you
Absolutely.
seen the Atom Project, Joe, or Eric? I mean, Joe,
no.
you and I had an episode about that, but Eric, have you seen the Atom Project?
What's that?
So it's pretty interesting. It's got Ryan Reynolds in it, and it's talking about like the future, And I think I'm not sure when this. I think it's like 2080 maybe is when this movie's set. But he ends up coming back to like 2020 on accident. So like the ship though is interesting because I feel like we probably have the technology to kind of do this already, but it runs off of his DNA. So he's the only person that can fly it. It learns him, it knows him when the ship is injured. And if he's injured, then the ship won't allow him to fly because it's connected through his DNA. So they're like a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
They help each other out. So that's the catch is like the people, the group that he works for is mad because they can't do anything with his ship because they don't have his DNA. They have to have his DNA in order to move it.
It won't heal itself unless he himself is healed, right?
Oh, that's far out.
And the metal that they use, it's just like a metamaterial, which does have properties that can heal itself just like human cells.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it needs some kind of technology, right? Like some kind of biological or DNA computing or algorithm or something, right? Like cells can exist, but they need a direction. Like, hey, this is how you do that. Like a program, like the DNA program. Man.
Yeah,
super cool.
Yeah, the biomech stuff. Now you get into like just being able to interface with the craft through your mind, which we can already hook our heads up and move the mouse on a computer or move an artificial arm. We can already do that.
Yep.
So who's to say that we can't actually interface with our minds into a craft? And like part of me almost thinks that like the Tic Tacs or whatever it is that we're seeing, the saucers, like whatever it is that you're seeing, like the smaller ones, it almost seems like it's maybe not even a craft. It's maybe more of a platform that's coming from the craft itself, the thing actually moving through the universe, and the smaller stuff is just kind of a platform that you can interface with. That's total speculation. I have no idea, but
no, you're onto something because there have been reports even of the Tic Tac at the Nimitz where it looked fuzzy. It almost like, when you have a heat rising off a stove, you have kind of that wavy look to it. Like some of these craft are made out of metal, ceramic, whatever, but it's almost This is like it's so weird. It's like a solid, but it's got this kind of fuzzy visual thing around it where it kind of doesn't look real, but it is. It's very odd. It's
It's almost
very
like
odd.
it's like bending light around it. Like
Yes.
you can almost see through it,
Right.
but you're like, wait, can I see through it?
Okay, so
Right.
how do you bend light with frequency? Because I think there's a key there. Like you can bend light with a couple things, like
Mhm.
gravity, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and with certain layers of glass, you can bend light around objects. But I
Right.
think you can also bend light with certain frequencies, and you need a certain type of atmosphere to do that.
Well,
So
that
Mhm.
little shield that high school kid made or whatever is a perfect
yeah,
example, you know,
yeah.
of being
What
able
do you
to just.
make?
So he made
Oh,
this like plastic. It's like a man. I don't know. It looks like something you put on a pergola. It's just like a plastic, and
Yeah.
you can like put it right in front of you, and you can't see behind it. It's like bending light to where like it's almost like an invisible cloak. It's really interesting. You can't see the person
Wow.
standing behind it. Ben's gonna pull up a picture of it right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. Like we have, and a kid made this. It's like, what is the military doing? You know what I'm saying? Or
Wait, what?
yeah, so it's like a plexiglass type thing that he made, and what happened to it?
Ah.
nope. There we go.
Wrong.
Well,
Copy image address and paste.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's one image, and then this one. Look at that! Like this is crazy.
he's
Copy link
totally
address.
blocked out. These craft, I would assume,
what
are
are
fully capable of doing this.
So it's like a DIY thing. Like you can look up the instructions on on YouTube now. I actually did that after our show. It was like 2 weeks ago. We were talking about this, and yeah, you could build this one with just some layers of plexiglass. Apparently,
interesting?
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think one of the big hangups that people have is the fact that like we don't have the full realization of what the human species is capable of creating. And the stuff that is coming out now was already created and used 60 years ago by, where it starts. Most of that stuff comes from like military funding and research and
Yeah.
stuff, and they utilize it how they want to utilize it, learn how to use it, and then they send the rest of it down to us. It's like, here's the
Mhm.
new iPhone 30, but like we've been using iPhone 80, for like a long time already. But you guys
Yeah.
enjoy that. It's going to be really cool. So you got guys like Jim Goodall. We were talking about that earlier. He knew Ben Rich, who was the president of Lockheed Martin. Ben Rich straight up told everybody. He
Mhm.
says, somebody asked him about ETs, and he said, not only do we have the technology to take ET home, I have the contract. What does that mean? Like he can just say that, but like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, the same guy said that anything you've ever seen in Star Trek or Star Wars, we've already thought about it, tried it, or realized it wasn't worth our time. Like
Yeah.
when you
Yep.
have a guy like that making those types of statements, it's like, all right, what is up? And I think some of it is ours. Now I think there's some really weird stuff that definitely is not ours, but I think it would be nice to know what we're capable of building, but we'll never find that out.
Yeah. So you're under the impression that some of these things that people are seeing could be ours, and I'm guessing because of back engineering things we found.
I think so. I think either back
Yeah.
engineering things that we found or by total accident or luck or inspiration.
Okay.
Like I love the idea that humans built the pyramids. I love that idea. I love
Yeah.
the idea of like human beings and their ingenuity and like their creativity and their divine sparks that they have to like bring in whole new eras of the world, is like so like empowering
And we
like
still can't figure it out.
for the human species. Even though we can't figure it out, we're on this crazy journey. And in the whole
Yeah.
time span of the human species, we haven't been around very long. And like we're already exploring off of our planet. And I think that's really cool. And there's a lot of there's a lot of negativity about the human race, but I like to look at it, I know that there's shitty people out there, but I like to look at it as a whole. Look at all the cool stuff we've done, and we don't even know what we're capable of doing. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, when I saw Stan Friedman speak about 20 years ago, he was talking about just how fast everything's accelerating, and he gave a great example right at the beginning. He said, travel back in time and give Christopher Columbus, the most brilliant people of his era, unlimited funding, unlimited resources, and tell him to build a pocket calculator. Absolutely impossible. With all the world's resources, they wouldn't even come close. They couldn't even make the plastic, let alone, a solar powered battery. I mean, and just think that was about, 500 years ago.
Right.
And now we have people walking on the moon and the internet. Like, dude, I can't even talk about Wi-Fi. I can't even wrap my head around it. Like some invisible thing comes from that box and I can go on YouTube. Totally blows my mind. But 500 years ago, the world's resources couldn't make a pocket calculator.
Absolutely. And
So-
isn't that like interesting that Wi-Fi is like giving you internet through the air, And you think about an advanced civilization, and are they transmitting messages to you, and you think it's telepathic, but it's not. It's technology you just don't know about or understand,
Right.
Say what you will about technology and an advanced civilization should be able to speak telepathically, but man, I think we figured some really awesome stuff out just with no help, and I think this catalyst moment where 300 years ago we were sharpening blades and knives with like a grindstone, and once somebody figured out one thing, I think it's a culmination of things. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. I mean, a lot of stuff had to have happened, like the mining of like copper and figuring out that that's like a conductive material, and like having that be a lucrative business. So like it has a lot to do with how we figure stuff out, but also commerce and economy. I think that's a huge chunk of the reason why we are where we are today, and a big reason why we aren't where we could be right now. Because right now we're like in this sweet spot where whoever's at the top is making a pretty hefty amount. And I'm getting conspiratorial, but if you're a billionaire by controlling this certain set of the economy, meaning like technologies with propulsion or having to do with efficiency with combustion engines, I would do everything in my power. I would probably spend half of my money preventing those technologies from replacing the thing that's making my silk sheets. Right. I think that's just not me. I don't know. I've never been in that scenario, so I don't know what I would do.
I've never owned the banking industry before. Maybe I'll try it sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never owned silk sheets before, but shit. I got like 500 count. Working on just leveling up to 700 count.
It's bad when hotels have better sheets than you.
Remember we were in Vegas,
you don't want to leave the
damn,
hotel.
these beds are so comfortable.
I miss my wife, but goddamn, this comfy sheet. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a comfy ass bed. Damn.
Oh,
We were like
man.
looking at the label. Remember, I was like, let's look at the fucking label.
They're really good, man. They're really good. So being able to get to have a chance to talk to experiencers and kind of let them just unload. What has been one of the most what's been one of the most eye-opening things that you think that you've experienced with this?
Well, as far as what I see in clients, it's their loneliness. It's a pretty isolating experience, like we discussed earlier. what I do think is very positive in me, just studying this field and talking to clients is I don't really worry about things I used to worry about. I find them so trivial. So before I started researching UAPs, I was researching a lot about the criminal justice system, race, economics, and a couple other subjects that relate to those. I was very interested in cancel culture. I was very interested in victimhood. And some of those subjects made my blood boil out of people's selfishness or people's deceit. And now I do not care at all. I don't care at all because the UAP story, i- I think it's inarguably the greatest story in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
With that said, the the intentions of UAP occupants, especially around our most prized military assets, I'm kind of on the pessimistic end of the spectrum. We have people who think that they're visiting to make us this amazing, effective, conflict free, non polluting, philosophical, intellectual, insightful society. That could be true. But the more I learn, and I don't know why I feel this way, I sometimes have an occasional feeling of doom, which does give me anxiety or make me depressed. I have no specific reason to believe this. It might stem from their interaction with military assets and nuclear stuff. But that's one of the challenges about this field is we've never gotten a message. You know, we've never sat down and talked to somebody from a UAP, and it's all very mysterious. In general, when people are lacking information, they make up a bad story. It's just what we're good at, right? So my
Right.
boss, it's so ridiculous. I think I need a therapist. When she says, "Oh, Eric, I got to talk to you later," I'm like, "Yep, I'm getting fired. Yep, definitely. Career's over. I'll never be on the UFO Garage podcast. You know, my world is shattered." And then I poke my head in later and she's like, "Oh, yeah, we're going to the furniture store. Didn't you say you need a lamp?" And I'm like, "Oh." But that's what we do. You know, our wife is home a half hour late. Yeah, she's probably cheating on me. And she's like, "No, I just had to stop at the grocery store." So maybe I'm falling into that where I'm lacking information. So I'll just go back to that thing we've been carrying with us since the caveman days. I'll think of a terrible story because it's good to have your guard up. And if you go in with low expectations, you'll always be pleasantly surprised. So I have stopped worrying about things I now find very trivial. But if sometimes I just need a break from the UAP stuff, like I'll put down my book, I'll shut
Mhm.
off my computer, I'll go hiking because there's so much information going to be quite overwhelming.
Absolutely can be, man. You were talking a little bit a second ago about, you were really into like, economics and like
Mhm.
race and, a lot of things that happen to people in their everyday life, a lot of, like, just the way you grow up, the way you are,
Mhm.
your current situation, a lot of that stuff does stem from, like where you grew up or your economic
Sure.
situation or like, even certain like race topics, like there's just all that stuff is included. Do you feel
Mhm.
like the UFO topic is something that transcends all of that? Because it's
Absolutely.
happening to everybody equally. Like, we want to talk about equality, man. UFOs are totally equal. They're non-discriminate. They're they're picking up everybody out here, Like
Yeah.
Picking up everybody.
it's such a, and that's one of the things that I find delightful about the topic is that like a lot of those can be uncomfortable conversations sometimes. And then a lot of times people just can't handle them for some reason. But
Right.
this thing is like, well, we don't have to talk about any of that. Let's talk about like something that's happening to people real quick.
Right. And it's global. I mean, it's every human. And of course, I watch your episodes with Lou Elizondo, and he and others have said when whatever happens happens, it's not, well, you're Iranian and I'm Canadian and you're black and I'm Asian. It's just, it's going to be, we're humans, or we're earthlings even. And that would be quite refreshing. It would be quite refreshing. That's kind of, I've started that mindset myself, where I'm now less concerned with maybe your physical characteristics or what country you're from. It's that you're from this planet, because the way things are shaping up, another theory is that these UAP occupants maybe originated on Earth and now live on another planet. I'm open to that as well, or maybe originate from another planet and just visiting here. I don't know, but if the future human theory is incorrect, then we have humans and we have something else. It's certainly changed my mind on that. And you make a very good point. I think whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's going to bring us together. And now we are just humans. I mean, what a thought.
Right. Right.
I love that
Great.
idea, because even if they as extraterrestrials are from a different universe or a different planet or galaxy, I have a feeling that we share a common ancestry. Especially if we have one head, two eyes, a nose, a mouth, two arms,
And 2 legs. That's
two
the really big
legs.
deal. Being bipedal is extremely rare.
Yeah, and I don't. It's just a hunch, man. Based off of the amount of people that I've talked to, and just the amount of time that I've taken to like really think about a lot of this stuff. And yeah, man, it's gotta be more simple than we're making it. Making it out to be. I mean, I'm not discounting the idea that there's like reptilians and feline races, because well, in both of those, there's one head, two arms, two legs. Maybe sometimes there's like vestigial limbs and stuff. Which, look, Joe and I are very open minded to that. In any different race or whatever. There's an insectoid race as well. So
Yeah.
I'm just interested in all that. But like the unifying factor, going back to that, what you were speaking about, Eric, is I think what's happening now, or what we're seeing, especially in the past couple of years, is this push to not tell you what it is or where they're from, but to make us as a society, as a world culture, have it be our own idea and our own interpretation. Because you can't just tell everybody, "Hey, get along." They have to accept it, and it has to be their idea. It has to be our idea. Like, you can't just force somebody to do something as complicated as get along. Right.
Right.
So I just kind of, I feel like we're in a good place, you guys. Like, nuts and bolts or spirituality, I think they're all coming, to a head pretty soon, y'all.
I would agree. And the recent intelligence briefing, the congressional briefing that aired, other people have pointed this out. My favorite part was that the 2 gentlemen who were briefing the House Intelligence Committee in America, they seem very human. They seem very personable, very approachable. It sounds like I could have a beer with one of those guys, which really surprised me. I've worked for the feds. I was in the military, and they could be pretty dry bureaucrats.
Yeah.
And they even took the time to say that sometimes.
Yeah, Ronald Moultrie was like, "Yeah, I'm a fan of sci-fi.
I was a fan of sci-fi. Cool. Moultrie also said, he's like, I have family members and friends, and we just want to know what this is, and everybody wants to be safe." I thought that was brilliant that he mentioned that, and it seemed very authentic.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of an experiencer being called the antenna? Have you ever heard that term?
Yes. Yeah. So well, how do you take that?
Well, basically what it seems like to me, and there's, some research coming out now with like Gary Nolan doing studies on the basal ganglia and the cauda hypothema, area of the brain, and how like certain experiencers, that area of the brain lights up, like it's
Yes.
like really overly active, and it's
Yep.
usually not something that you would see. They're producing higher frequencies. Well, the intelligence agency classifies these people as antennas, and for me, without getting any sort of clear explanation from the feds, right? It leads me to believe that these people can activate this region of the brain, or when these things come around, it lights up, and maybe that's a beacon of some sort for some of these contactees. It's like, well, maybe it's not all just chips and stuff. Maybe it's a actual biological thing that's happening to the human body when they come in contact with these craft. What is what's the new one been? It's like a traumatic brain injury that people are starting to. I think they're saying that they're getting when they come in contact with some of these craft, but
Yeah, you said
Yeah.
traumatic a TB
TBI.
TBI injury.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. There
I can
you go.
spell. I can totally spell.
Even as even as simple as needing glasses, they believe that the electromagnetics in these things are like, well, actually people get sunburns and things like that, and it's pulling the iron from your blood up to the surface, like it's actually separating it, and it's really dangerous stuff that can happen if you get next to really powerful magnets. Well, this kind of stuff is happening to people when they're coming
Yeah.
in contact with these things. It's pretty powerful, that brain thing. If it is creating a antenna of some sort, that would be interesting to see some studies on that, because we have a lot of friends who say, yeah, um I will see things pretty often, but have you ever gotten 5 of us together in a room to see what happens? And they will occasionally get together, and you always see something. I mean, we've been out with them, and when you get them all together, I mean, the skies light up. It's very strange. It's very
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah, and now that you explain the antenna thing, I know what you mean, and yeah, I have heard of that. And there's, some theories about why are certain people contacted, and others aren't. I've also read very interesting cases where there'll be, 4 people standing outside, and one of them's like, "Dude, do you see that?" And they're like, "See what?" Where they're
Mhm.
and
Yup.
it's like, but it's a physical, as far as we can tell, it's a physical object, so why can't you see it? Another example is, say we go on vacation in Hawaii, take a bunch of photos of volcanoes. They don't see anything. When the film's developed, there's something on it. So
Yup.
a device can pick it up, but we can't. Speaking about UAP injuries, one of the documents released, there were about 48 pages released, 48 documents totaling 1,500 pages released by the government recently. I'm reading through all of them, and I did read the one about UAP injuries. And I'm just speaking for myself. If I saw a UAP, I wouldn't go near it, because some of these injuries are very bad, really bad, particularly the brain injuries. And if I remember correctly, let's say they had 40 or 50 people that they studied that were near UAPs. I believe a quarter of them died within 7 years of seeing the UAP. And again, maybe it's something to do with the propulsion system, some kind of electromagnetic wave. There was a case, I've been trying to look into it because I kind of know people in the military where some of the people studied were special forces officers, who were medically retired, and some of them died not long after being around the UAP. Nobody will reveal where they were, what was the nature of it. Were they there by chance? Were they sent there on a mission? Nobody really knows, but they woke up unconscious with burns and then subsequent TBIs. I'd really be cautious about approaching something. However, there are other instances, like I know somebody who lives in the Midwest, and an orb with a cube in the middle, similar to what the Navy has seen, floated over him, and he had no signs or symptoms of any kind of adverse effects. So again, like Bob Lazar said, we have no idea what we're poking around in. And he put it like, what if you dropped off a nuclear reactor in, 1600s England? Eventually they're going to get curious. They're going to take off the shielding. Everybody's going to die. And then more people just walk into the room. And they have no idea what radiation is.
Yeah.
And so some of these injuries are actually really concerning, especially to the brain. It's a very, very delicate organ.
It is. And it's also really interesting, like when you look back in like, ancient history type stuff, like you look at the Ark of the Covenant. What happens if you go in there and you see it? Your hair starts to fall out. You start to lose your teeth. You can't handle it. Only certain people are allowed to go in there. You can start relating like these craft to like just simple things that have happened here on Earth. There's certain temples, right, that you're not supposed to go near because it's got something inside and people die when they go inside. Like, that's really creepy that we've been dealing with this and it's been recorded like down in ancient history, and we're still to this day looking up like, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
Also, like just knowing that the human body, it runs off of electrical impulses, well, mixed with chemical, but we're electrical beings. Like the synapses, the communication between our brain and every organism that lives in our body, it thrives off of electrical communication at a very subdued level. So if whatever craft or technology that it's using has to do with the same communication level that our body communicates with, there's got to be something that can go wrong, and it more validates those stories for me, knowing that like at a tiny level, the things that make things work can also ruin it or destroy it.
Yeah, and I think again, I don't know too much about it, just what I read. I don't think these injuries are intentional. I don't think there's any ill will to injure humans. I just think that we're getting close to something that we don't understand the effects of. Could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's like this is probably a terrible analogy, but it's like when you're mowing the lawn, right? And a grass snake, you scare it and it shoots out in front of your lawnmower and you run it over.
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't mean to do that. You just got too close. You died. I was trying to observe you from a distance and you walked up to me. Yeah, it was a terrible analogy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's something there. There's something there.
I'm gonna work on it and come back to you next week.
Bro, actually, I was playing with Birdie in the backyard. That's our dog, Erik. My wife and I's dog. And I like throwing the ball, and I'm like, ha ha ha. And I walk up on these like two little grass snakes. They're very maybe dark brown or black, and they have the two yellow, very light stripes along. They're very like they're cute little snaky boys.
Oh yeah.
And they startled me. I mean, I did scream like a girl. But they're not poisonous, so I was like, oh, okay, well, hopefully Birdie doesn't see them and eat them. But like,
because Birdie ain't scared.
We just so happened to get close enough to where we noticed each other via I saw it smelled me or saw me, and those fields did not connect. Just on a very molecular level, we repelled each other. The snake went that way, I went this way, screaming. I didn't scream. It was like for a second, okay, but there's a communication there. So
Erik, we have a question from the chat. It says, Erik, for those out there that are having problems processing the things they might have experienced, what is the best path forward for them?
It's a good question. Well, of course, it varies from person to person. There's though my screen name is UAP therapist, there's really nothing like a UAP therapist out there. We just have therapists that address how to reduce the frequency and intensity of symptoms. So unfortunately, you can't, there's no real solution for maybe an overwhelming UAP experience. So we'd have to use something that we have experience with in the past. So I kind of classify and they're not all like this, but I would classify a lot of UAP experiences as a traumatic event. Okay, so we have people who get in car crashes and they're assaulted and they're in combat, right? So it doesn't have to be with UAP some kind of physical injury, you were taken against your will, something like that. It could just be completely overwhelming, right? So somebody in combat can have a traumatic experience by just witnessing something. They're not physically harmed. And maybe we could say a UAP experience is kind of similar. There might be some overlap in symptoms or maybe even the event itself. So what do people do when they experience a traumatic event? Other people people who experience traumatic events find great power in confiding in people who have a shared experience, right? That's why we have support groups for combat veterans. That's why we have support groups for people who are victims of human trafficking, people who were sexually assaulted, people who had a spouse die, right? They go to these, and it's kind of like we were talking about way earlier in this podcast when somebody comes to my office and they just tell me. And I go, wow, that sounds horrible. And they're like, oh, thank you. Somebody finally gets it. Making contact with other experiencers, I think would be a really good idea because it takes the loneliness out of the journey, right? I think that's a really good approach. Or you could see a therapist, somebody like me. If you don't want to do the group thing, either online or in person, you could work with a therapist. And what we call it is narrative therapy, right? So if somebody experienced something that was unpleasant, overwhelming, something like that, they could do narrative therapy. And it's just they're going to tell me the story, right? They're going to tell me any aspect of the story. It totally sucked. I was scared. I couldn't believe it was happening. Nobody believes me. Why me? I was just driving down the road minding my own business, right? Whatever happened to them in that experience, they could confide in other people to find that shared experience, or they could work with a professional. And basically they come in and they're like, I got to tell somebody. I got to get this off my chest, right? And again, you have to be very careful who you tell because somebody might say you're crazy. Somebody might say, oh, that happened so long ago. Again, be dismissive. So what you really need is somebody with a shared experience or a professional who knows how to listen, right? Probably another one is just to educate yourself, right? So that might, like we were talking earlier, this whole damn thing is one giant puzzle, right? So if they can educate themselves on what might this be, where might it come from, I think the more knowledge we have, the less anxious we are. Does that sound about, you guys get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely having that knowledge definitely like kind of calms the anxiety of the whole situation, It's kind of like what I was
Absolutely.
talking about earlier with the like, if we knew like what we were actually capable of technologically wise, like if the whole human race knew that we have the technology to fly 9,000 miles an hour, right? That would then like open a whole nother level of like possibilities in the mind of like, oh,
Was literally
okay.
happening right now, dude.
You're like,
This.
Yeah.
it makes this not so bad because now we can move on to this. But at least now I have like a ground level. I have something I can stand on, something I can build off of. Yeah, just a little bit of knowledge definitely can make you feel good. That's for sure.
Yeah, I
I
guess.
Oh, sorry, Eric,
Didn't
go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt. I guess what I was getting at is it is not a good idea to isolate. That's probably right at the bottom of the list of things you want to do.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
I was gonna say just to your point,
Yeah.
Eric and Joe, like what we're seeing, like even just this week with the congressional public hearings, the first public hearings in 50 years.
Yeah.
One of the main topics, and I just love this, man. I love that one of the main points to the introduction was, hey, we want to get rid of the stigma, man. Like, look, everybody's seeing these stuff, like very very smart people, the best of the best of the best, sir, people are seeing this stuff. Let's just get rid of this stuff. And it's rebranding. I mean, like, it's just beautiful to see. So
It is.
I'm just glad to see that that is even in the public zeitgeist, and it is like my grandma like reached out and was like, "Hey," sent me like a screenshot. When are you coming on? I'm like, well, we're not there yet, Mama, but that's cool that you're watching.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And Andre Carson, I think he's Democrat from Indiana. He was kind of the guy running the show, and it was probably the third sentence he said. He goes, the stigma has to end. And I remember him specifically saying,
Yep.
if you report a UAP, you are now a witness and not a kook. That I was
Yep.
floored
So awesome.
that they put such an empathetic human face on that meeting. Again, I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. I always feel bad because, like, I'll poo-poo the whole thing right off the bat, just because it's just you don't think about it. You don't think about like the important pieces that that other people haven't come to the realization of yet, to like, in my mind, it's like I didn't even need any proof. Like, for some reason you just feel like it exists. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you what it is, but I feel it in my bones, right? You just have that feeling. But there is a lot of cool stuff that came out of that, and what you guys were talking about is definitely one of the most important parts. Is like, hey, we got to kill the stigma. This isn't crazy. Like, that was great.
Yep.
So, and we're gonna talk about it probably a few more times because it's huge. I mean, it is huge. It's like, it's the first time I've talked about it in over 50 years. Now, was it like tasty, juicy stuff? Not exactly. But again, it's something I've been interested in for a long time. So like, I'm just ready for the juicy stuff, right?
But is it juicy stuff is it not juicy for us because we're like our relativeness to the subject, like, as we talk about it all the time? Because, dude, I think it's the
It
fact
is.
that like somebody could turn on the news right now and see some legit conversations happening with some really smart people.
Yeah. It is.
And,
It is juicy. Like, that part is
that is
juicy.
awesome,
But
man.
I think I enjoy just ignoring it and being like, ha, I told you.
Dude, honestly, same. Like,
I
feel
am
like,
validated. I don't need to express that in any shape or form. I feel good about it.
it's almost like a slap on the butt. Like, keep going,
Yeah.
bud.
I've
Keep
gotten a
going.
couple
I'm
texts like, that stuff you were
yeah,
talking about is real. I'll be like, yeah, I know.
I
I've
know.
told you.
And it's not like a talk down, like, it's like I know. Welcome. I'm excited for you to start your journey now.
Welcome to the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
It's that opening of a new door on, like, oh my goodness, this is possible. Wow.
Yeah,
That's like, I don't know. It's like anytime it's literally the biggest thing to happen since, like, you watched Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. It's like the biggest thing ever,
Yeah.
because that opened so many doors. But this is like, okay, now we're officially like off planet, or out of this dimension. Whatever it is that we decide it's going to be, like, in the future, it's going to be just world shifting in the biggest way possible.
So, dude, I 100% agree. And I guess I got a question for Eric. Like, going into this, what's going to happen in the next couple years is going to be pretty different, pretty juxtaposed to the last 70 years where this topic really became in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
How do you plan on tackling what's to come with people experiencing more and more? Because I think it's going to happen. Do you have a plan on what's going to happen? Because I think
And if
you're
I
going to get
could
a lot more
add on
clients.
that, add on that just a little bit, you're probably not going to be dealing with just experienced or clients. Now you're going to be dealing with just regular people who are trying to cope with the terms that now there's something else out there,
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Oh, both very good points. Yeah, I anticipate working with people Joe mentioned. I think it's going to be people with a lot of anxiety about this evidence coming out, and they're just overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. And that's why I make it, I think I'm obligated to keep up to date with everything that's happening and educate myself the best I can. Because I mean, what a pleasant surprise if you were really anxious about and this the congressional briefing, I think this like the starting gun has been fired, right? And we're off. We're off, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people were critical of that meeting. Again, I thought it was outstanding because the message was I took three things out of it. These things are real. We're very concerned. We're all in this together. That's the message I got. And I was like,
what else
dude,
do you want?
yeah, I don't need the infamous 23-minute video where you can look and that will come. That
I
will
want to
come.
know what the aliens look like.
Yeah, it's
You
fine.
know, what'd be better is that you get your own experience, man. Like just be happy with the
Yeah, I think it was a great message overall. But getting back to the clients, yeah, it's going to be people who kind of start getting into UAPs and seeing this, and then they're like, "Oh shit, dude, this stuff's real. Did you read this article? I read this article, and I watched this podcast, and they're saying all these crazy things." And dude, I think they're correct. So I think I'm going to have clients coming in because they're overwhelmed, and I mean, in short, your worldview is being challenged, right? It's a really big deal. All this evidence that's coming out. And man, how awesome would it be if somebody comes in and sees me, maybe a client I've been seeing for the past year, and they want to talk about it, and I come back with, I am very familiar with this.
Yeah.
They would feel so good because we wouldn't kind of be solving these mysteries. Like I can tell them about the evidence. I could tell them I've been researching this for the past year and a half. And when they have questions, I'll be able to answer them and educate them, which may reduce the anxiety a little. So that's going to be one population. When it comes to pure experiencers, I'm going to use all the approaches that we discussed earlier. Quite frankly, I'm surprised I've never had a client, a non-UAP experiencer, bring this stuff up. I have two clients who I've kind of mentioned it in passing, and they knew what your UAPs were. They were familiar with the Nimitz incident. And then I had a third client who watched a Bob Lazar video a couple times and knew about Lazar. Other than that, nobody's mentioned it. And even all my friends, I've never had a friend bring it up. Like, dude, did you hear about this congressional hearing? And that's for a couple of reasons. Look, we're all not the same. And if we were, life would be really boring.
Yeah.
And my friend who's married, so she's got her husband and she's got her two kids. The husband and wife work full time. They're fixing up their house. People have better things to do. I have the luxury that I have a lot of spare time to look into UAPs. And I got kind of not frustrated with her, but I was just astounded that, I sent her a couple links and I was like, oh, this is totally going to blow her mind. And she looked at him and she was like, yeah, I get it. And I was like, Aaron, what the hell are you talking? Like, your mind is supposed to be blown, and I'm getting mad at you because your mind isn't blown. And she says, Erik, I have two kids with a lot of food allergies and a picky husband. I'm trying to cook dinner. I get it. I totally get it, right?
Story of our lives, dude.
Yeah.
So I get it. We just have to live our lives. We can't be passionate about everything.
But don't be blowing up my phone when one lands on your front yard and you want to know stuff about it.
Yeah.
It's too late. Okay?
Yeah, it's going to voicemail.
Oh God,
I love that story, Erik, dude. I thank you for sharing that because I resonate with that so much, man, without going into too much detail. But like, man, so many of my friends are like, no, dude, I get it. Like, great, like awesome. But I've got other shit going on that like directly involves me like feeding other babies' mouths. Like, let's just talk about that. And hey, that's fine, man.
I get it.
And yeah, I think at the beginning of one's journey, if just bringing this, just winding it back for a second. If anybody else out there is thinking about this, is like, dude, if you've been through an experience like last week, it's probably really fresh, and you need to talk to somebody, and you need to absolutely do that. And I guess my last question is like, do you think that time and speaking about it and connecting with people as social creatures, as humans, like, do you think that's the remedy? Do you think like there's no drug out there that you can take that
Yeah.
to get rid of this, right?
Yeah. 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 I think it's all about connection. I think it's about telling your story. You know, there's not really a cure. You know, like if you have a
Right.
specific mental illness, we have some really good medications out there that can help. But in this case, it's unique, right? So if we have somebody experiencing maybe anxiety or even post-traumatic stress disorder, we can treat that, right? We have medication, we have talk therapy approaches and stuff like that. But it's this whole other, all these other things that go into it, whether you're thinking about where did we come from, or religion, or philosophy, or future, or other dimensions. There are just so many more questions than answers. And yeah, I think connection is not the cure, but it's a really good idea, because again, isolating is that should be at the bottom of your list.
Love it.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Well, we're getting pretty close to the end, Erik. Man, this has been absolutely awesome, man. It's been so great talking to you. Some would
Likewise.
say that what you're doing right now is very brave, right? I got to tell you, Ben and I have been working on a documentary for about 2 years. Do you know how hard it has been to get somebody like you with your qualifications to even talk about it? Like, it has been
Yeah.
a nightmare, right?
We've tried talking to physicians and other, just like in the medical field, and dude, it is so tough.
Everybody's like, I'll write it down on a sticky note. Like, okay.
Right. Yeah. And Ross Coulthart, who I'm sure you know, he's spoken about this well. He stuck his neck out as a really good journalist. And if anybody criticizes him, he does not care at all. And I'm on the same boat. You know, if somebody's like, because, you know, experiencers are being criticized, but I've been criticized just for offering help. You know, I remember when I created my Twitter account, the very first comment I received was, "Are you fucking kidding me? You could have actually done something useful with your degree." The very first Twitter comment. So if I'm being treated like that, imagine somebody who's reaching out for help is being treated. And again, we mentioned it before, people could be quite vicious about it.
They really can.
And you know what's crazy? Well, you know what's interesting
Yeah.
is that the most vicious people, especially on Twitter, that are attacking those that are coming out with their story or trying to help other people, are often other experiencers. That's like, it sucks. And it comes from, like, the root of it is that self-acceptance and that connection. You know, they're lacking that. Like, that's the remedy. Like, that's why I try to, like, I think Joe and I are like, hey, no drama. Don't talk shit about anybody. Hey, be like, hey, dude, let's talk. Let's hash this out. What are we talking about here? Because I feel like this anger is coming from a place that we can connect on it and get through. So
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Dude, I've loved having you come on. I feel like we need to, like, introduce you as like our resident psychologist, you know, and maybe every couple months we do a segment or whatever you're working on, dude. You're always welcome to come back on the show, brother.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, you have a great rest of your night, man. Be safe. Thank you so much for what you do. That's been, you know, one of the biggest things as we've done this is, man, I just wish somebody would listen to us. And that's what Ben and I try to bring to the table. And we're so glad to have qualified people like you kind of starting to do the same thing, man. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody appreciates your work, especially myself. And thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, man. Well, you have a great night. All right.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Peace,
Bye.
man.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, are we both pressing the button?
We are. We're both trying to be responsible.
You're so responsible tonight, dude.
I was
Damn, you got
trying
that.
to.
You got the jacket.
I put a
and-
jacket on, and all of a sudden, I start wanting to be all smart and shit.
Dude, you are like so smart tonight.
Was
Also,
I?
let me see them elbow pads, dog.
Oh, dude, yeah,
That's what's up.
yeah.
Damn, you know what those are for?
For if you gotta like lay down like this and take a picture.
That's exactly what they're for. I didn't expect you to know that.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's also for reading. So you put it down here, and then you have your book really close. Because that's if you actually read books, you know that you read, and also chicken wings.
Chicken wings. Yeah, it's for
Okay.
extra padding. Did yours have the little pockets on the inside of the elbows where you can add extra padding?
No.
Mine either, but we should make some.
You know what we could do in those pockets is put our chili in instead of the bananas.
There you go.
You know?
There you go. Oh man, whew! It was getting hot in there, dude. You know,
I'm never taking this jacket off. I'm telling you that much.
It was like 98 degrees today. And it's nighttime, but it's like summertime in Texas. So the humidity, so now it's like 96.5 degrees.
Dang, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. But I got this sweet fan. It was pretty awesome, man.
Uh,
Dude, wasn't that such a good conversation?
It was so good, man.
was a lot of fun.
I'm so happy. And dude, yeah, we've been kind of chatting back and forth on Twitter, and I just love his vibe, man. I'm just so happy we got him on, and there's a lot to this subject, and you know, I'm just glad we were able to get like actual like professionals on this show to
I know.
kind of go through this.
It's nice. You could tell he's good because like I found myself unloading a whole bunch of like extra shit that like wasn't in my mind at the beginning. And then I would look and he'd be like, you know, there's something to that. There's something to that. Like,
that's
oh,
so
this guy is good. He doesn't judge people. That's awesome.
That's the most, that's the most exciting part is like just no judgment, just a cool guy. I love it.
Yeah, he was really awesome. I think even I think his company gave him a shout out, dude.
Yeah.
I'm looking through the comments right now.
And Enzo says Ben looks like he's going to court. What about Joe, dude? He's got a UFO shirt on, dude.
I'm the opposite side of going to court. Fool, I have to go too. You're just the guy defend. I have to go to court, but you're just the guy defending me right now.
Oh, okay.
You're my public defender.
Hey, so Your Honor, like, what's up, though?
We're both going to court, just for different reasons.
It's just like total opposites.
Yeah, Willow Creek Wellness is proud to have curious and empathetic therapists like Erik, who will support anyone seeking tools to resolve anxiety, depression, or trauma associated with unexplained phenomena. How cool is that, dude? Like
That
that's
is so
so
cool.
awesome. Yeah.
Dude.
I'm gonna hop on Yelp and give them 5 stars just for like being cool about it, you know?
Honestly, if everybody is still here, we've got quite a many people watching the show. Hey, do Erik a favor, do us a favor. You know, it'd be awesome if we all did a review and said, hey, Willow Creek, best in the biz, open-minded, very
would definitely eat here again.
Man, got great salsa.
Heck yeah.
No.
Wouldn't
But
that
how
be
cool
dope?
would that be?
Hey, all right.
Yeah.
Shout out to wellness, to Willow Creek Wellness. I have an idea for you guys. While people are in the waiting room, we were discussing how sometimes that can be slow and boring. Y'all should start providing chips and salsa in the waiting room just to pass the time.
And that's why you're the new branding director of Willow Creek Wellness. But that is so cool. He had like not only like coworkers, but like just it sounded like just support, man. That is so cool, dude. I know we joke, but man, that is awesome. I'm gonna share my screen if anybody's in the Denver area, right? Did I say that right? Denver.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome.
If not,
diversity discovery.
This one's about to get a really good review.
Yeah, this is great, dude. I love it. Love it. It's a great website too.
Heck yeah.
Love that.
Where did my? There it is. Okay.
Colorado Springs. My bad, not Denver. Colorado Springs. Man, this just sounds like a great company. Great people. I'm just glad that they were open to talking about this, and you know, these are like, you know, trained professionals. Like they went to school and they know stuff. You know, we're like, if you go on a podcast, you never know what you're going to get. We might say the wrong thing, but at least they know. At least like a list of things not to say, which we don't have those lists. But man, anyway, that was cool. I freaking loved it. Great night, man.
Heck yeah, dude.
Also, there were some questions about whether or not you were partying tonight. We didn't see any one beer. I didn't see one beer on your desk tonight.
So I was grilling some chicken, and I finished my bottle of wine outside earlier. And then when I came up here, I had already drank it all. So I had a Dr. Pepper and a water left.
Okay. Well, hell, dude, that makes sense.
Yeah. I had already drank it.
Well, let's say this: if we end up doing what we were talking about on Saturday, how fun is that going to be?
It's going to be so fun.
I feel like we just set up a camera and just watch us cook a brisket all day, swimming, drinking beers with the wife and the babies, the wives and the babies.
I think that'd be dope.
Well, hopefully we'll see you guys on Saturday. Joe, see you guys on Saturday.
Heck yeah, I'm gonna ask the old lady right now before I go Mimi's, fool.
Hey, we gotta go Mimi's though.
Hell yeah. All right, everybody. Well, hey, this has been another successful Thursday. You're right, dude. I did change it. I have started saying successful all the time because you know what? Every Thursday is successful in my book, all right? Hey, this has been another episode of UFO Garage. We'll see you on Tuesday, man. I think we're going to be hanging out on Tuesday.
We're probably gonna eat leftover brisket. We're gonna have a lot of meat. It's just gonna be us boys.
We are, dude. We are gonna have a lot of meat. Hell yeah, more than usual, you know.
More than usual. All right, dude. See you later. I'll see you on Saturday.
Bye.
UFO Garage.